spoke all these words. I am God, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of a life of slavery. No other gods, only me. No carved gods of any size, shape, or form, or anything whatever, whether things that fly or walk or swim. Don't bow down to them and don't serve them, because I am God, your God. I am a jealous God. I'm a most jealous God, punishing the children for any sins their parents pass on to them, to the third and yes, even to the fourth generation of those who hate me. But I am unswervingly loyal to the thousands who love me and keep my commandments. No using the name of God, your God, in curses or silly banter. God won't put up with the irreverent use of his name. Observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Work 6 days and do everything you need to do, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to God, your God. Don't do any work, not you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your servant, nor your maid, nor your animals, not even foreign guests visiting in your town. For in 6 days God made heaven, earth, and sea, and everything in them. He rested on the seventh day. Therefore God blessed the Sabbath day. He set it apart as a holy day. Honor your father and mother so that you'll live a long life in the land that God, your God, is giving you. No murder, no adultery, no stealing, no lies about your neighbor, no lusting after your neighbor's house or wife or servant or maid or ox or donkey. Don't set your heart on anything that is your neighbor's. All the people experiencing the thunder and lightning, the trumpet blasts and smoking mountain were afraid. They pulled back and stood at a distance. They said to Moses, "You speak to us and we'll listen, but don't have God speak to us or we'll die." Moses talked to the people, "Don't be afraid. God has come to test you and instill a deep and reverent awe within you so that you won't sin." The people kept their distance while Moses approached the thick cloud where God was. God said to Moses, "Give this message to the people of Israel. You've experienced firsthand how I spoke with you from heaven. Don't make gods of silver and gods of gold and then set them alongside me. Make me an earthen altar. Sacrifice your whole burnt offerings, your peace offerings, your sheep, and your cattle on it. Every place where I cause my name to be honored in your worship, I'll be there myself and bless you. If you use stones to make my altar, don't use dressed stones. If you use a chisel on the stones, you'll profane the altar. Don't use steps to climb to my altar, because that will expose your nakedness." Exodus chapter 21. These are the laws that you are to place before them. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he will serve 6 years. The seventh year, he goes free for nothing. If he came in single, he leaves single. If he came in married, he leaves with his wife. If the master gives him a wife and she gave him sons and daughters, the wife and children stay with the master and he leaves by himself. But suppose the slave should say, "I love my master and my wife and my children, and I don't want my freedom." Then his master is to bring him before God and to a door or doorpost and pierce his ear with an awl, a sign that he is a slave for life. When a man sells his daughter to be a handmaid, she doesn't go free after 6 years like the men. If she doesn't please her master, her family must buy her back. Her master doesn't have the right to sell her to foreigners since he broke his word to her. If he turns her over to his son, he has to treat her like a daughter. If he marries another woman, she retains all her full rights to meals, clothing, and marital relations. If he won't do any of these three things for her, she goes free for nothing. If someone hits another and death results, the penalty is death. But if there was no intent to kill, if it was an accident, an act of God, I'll set aside a place to which the killer can flee for refuge. But if the murder was premeditated, cunningly plotted, then drag the killer away, even if it's from my altar, to be put to death. If someone hits his father or mother, the penalty is death. If someone kidnaps a person, the penalty is death, regardless of whether the person has been sold or is still held in possession. If someone curses father or mother, the penalty is death. If a quarrel breaks out and one hits the other with a rock or a fist, or the injured one doesn't die, but is confined to bed and then later gets better and can get about on a crutch, the one who hit him is in the clear, except for the pay for the loss of time and make sure of complete recovery. If a slave owner hits a slave, male or female, with a stick and the slave dies on the spot, the slave must be avenged. But if the slave survives a day or two, he is not to be avenged. The slave is the owner's property. I see. When there's a fight, and in the fight a pregnant woman is hit so that she miscarries but is not otherwise hurt, the one responsible has to pay whatever the husband demands in compensation. But if there is further damage, then you must give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. If a slave owner hits the eye of a slave or handmaid and ruins it, the owner must let the slave go free because of the eye. If the owner knocks out the tooth of the male or female slave, the slave must be released and go free because of the tooth. If an ox gores a man or woman to death, the ox must be stoned. The meat cannot be eaten, but the owner of the ox is in the clear. But if the ox has a history of goring and the owner knew it and did nothing to guard against it, then if the ox kills a man or a woman, the ox is to be stoned and the owner given the death penalty. If a ransom is agreed upon instead of death, he must pay it in full as a redemption for his life. If a son or daughter is gored, the same judgment holds. If it is a slave or handmaid, the ox gores, 30 shekels of silver is to be paid to the owner, and the ox stoned. If someone uncovers a cistern or digs a pit and leaves it open, and an ox or donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit must pay whatever the animal is worth to its owner, but can keep the dead animal. If someone's ox injures a neighbor's ox and the ox dies, then they must sell the live ox and split the price. They must also split the dead animal. But if the ox had a history of goring and the owner knew it and did nothing to guard against it, the owner must pay an ox for an ox, but can keep the dead animal. The book of Exodus, chapter 22. If someone steals an ox or a lamb and slaughters or sells it, the thief must pay 5 cattle in place of the ox and 4 sheep in place of the lamb. If the thief is caught while breaking in and is hit hard and dies, there is no blood guilt. But if it happens after daybreak, there is blood guilt. A thief must make full restitution for what is stolen. The thief who is unable to pay is to be sold for his thieving. If caught red-handed with the stolen goods and the ox or donkey or lamb is still alive, the thief pays double. If someone grazes livestock in a field or vineyard but lets them loose so they graze in someone else's field, restitution must be made from the best of the owner's field or vineyard. If fire breaks out and spreads to the brush so that the sheaves of grain or the standing grain or even the whole field is burned up, whoever started the fire must pay for the damages. If someone gives a neighbor money or things for safekeeping and they are stolen from the neighbor's house, the thief, if caught, must pay back double. If the thief is not caught, the owner must be brought before God to determine whether the owner was the one who took the neighbor's goods. In all cases of stolen goods, whether oxen, donkeys, sheep, clothing, anything in fact missing of which someone says, "That's mine," both parties must come before the judges. The one the judges pronounce guilty must pay double to the other. If someone gives a donkey or ox or lamb or any kind of animal to another for safekeeping, and if it dies or is injured or lost, and there is no witness, an oath before God must be made between them to decide whether one has laid hands on the property of the other. The owner must accept this and no damages are assessed, but if it turns out it was stolen, the owner must be compensated. If it has been torn by wild beasts, the torn animal must be brought in as evidence. No damages have to be paid. If someone borrows an animal from a neighbor and it gets injured or dies while the owner is not present, he must pay for it. But if the owner was with it, he doesn't have to pay. If the animal was hired, the payment covers the loss. If a man seduces a virgin who is not engaged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the marriage price and marry her. If her father absolutely refuses to give her away, the man must still pay the marriage price for virgins. Don't let a sorceress live. Anyone who has sex with an animal gets the death penalty. Anyone who sacrifices to a god other than God alone must be put to death. Don't abuse or take advantage of strangers. You remember you were once strangers in Egypt. Don't mistreat widows or orphans. If you do, and they cry to me, you can be sure I'll take them most seriously. I'll show my anger and come raging among you with the sword, and your wives will end up widows and your children orphans. If you lend money to my people, to any of the down and out among you, don't come down hard on them and gouge them with interest. If you take your neighbor's coat as security, give it back before nightfall. It may be your neighbor's only covering. What else does the person have to sleep in? If I hear the neighbor crying out from the cold, I'll step in. I'm compassionate. Don't curse God and don't damn your leaders. Don't be stingy as your wine vats fill up. Dedicate your firstborn sons to me. The same with your cattle and sheep. They are to stay for 7 days with their mother, then give them to me. Be holy for my sake. Don't eat mutilated flesh you find in the fields. Throw it to the dogs. The book of Exodus, chapter 23. Don't pass on malicious gossip. Don't link up with a wicked person and give corrupt testimony. Don't go along with the crowd in doing evil. And don't mess up your testimony in a case just to please the crowd. And just because someone is poor, don't show favoritism in a dispute. If you find your enemy's ox or donkey loose, take it back to him. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you lying helpless under its load, don't walk off and leave it. Help it up. When there is a dispute concerning your poor, don't tamper with the justice due them. Stay clear of false accusations. Don't contribute to the death of innocent and good people. I don't let the wicked off the hook. Don't take bribes. Bribes blind perfectly good eyes and twist the speech of good people. Don't take advantage of a stranger. You know what it's like to be a stranger. You were strangers in Egypt. Sow your land for 6 years and gather in its crops. But in the 7th year, leave it alone and give it a rest so that your poor may eat from it. What they leave, let the wildlife have. Do the same with your vineyards and olive groves. Work for 6 days and rest the seventh, so your ox and donkey may rest, and your servant and migrant workers may have time to get their needed rest. Listen carefully to everything I tell you. Don't pay attention to other gods. Don't so much as mention their names. 3 times a year you are to hold a festival for me. Hold the spring festival of unraised bread, when you eat unraised bread for 7 days at the time set for the month of Abib, as I commanded you. That was the month you came out of Egypt. No one should show up before me empty-handed. Hold the summer festival of harvest, when you bring in the first fruits of all your work in the fields. Hold the autumn festival of ingathering at the end of the season, when you bring in the year's crops. 3 times a year all your males are to appear before the Master, God. Don't offer the blood of a sacrifice to me with anything that has yeast in it. Don't leave the fat from my festival offering out overnight. Bring the choice first produce of the year to the house of your God. Don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. Now get yourselves ready. I'm sending my angel ahead of you to guard you in your travels, to lead you to the place that I prepared. Pay close attention to obey him. Obey him. Don't go against him. He won't put up with your rebellions because he's acting on my authority. But if you obey him and do everything I tell you, I will be an enemy to your enemies. I'll fight those who fight you. When my angel goes ahead of you and leads you to the land of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, I'll clear the country of them. So don't worship or serve other gods. Don't do anything they do, because I'm going to wipe them right off the face of the earth and smash their sacred phallic pillars to bits. But you serve your God, and he'll bless your food and your water. I'll get rid of the sickness among you, and there won't be any miscarriages nor barren women in your land. I'll make sure you live full and complete lives. I'll send my terror on ahead of you and throw those peoples you're approaching into a panic. All you'll see of your enemies is the backs of their necks. And I'll send despair on ahead of you. It will push the Hivites, the Canaanites, and the Hittites out of your way. I won't get rid of them all at once, lest the land grow up in weeds and the wild animals take over. Little by little, I'll get them out of there while you have a chance to get your crops going and make the land your own. I'll make your border stretch from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, and from the wilderness to the Euphrates River. I'm turning everything living in that land over to you. Go ahead and drive them out. Don't make any deals with them or their gods. They are not to stay in the same country with you, lest they get you to sin by worshiping their gods. Beware, that's a huge danger. Exodus chapter 24. He said to Moses, climb the mountain of God, you and Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. They will worship from a distance. Only Moses will approach God. The rest are not to come close, and the people are not to climb the mountain at all. So Moses went to the people and told them everything God had said, all the rules and regulations. They all answered in unison, everything God said we'll do. Then Moses wrote it all down, everything God had said. He got up early the next morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain, using 12 pillar stones for the 12 tribes of Israel. Then he directed young Israelite men to offer whole burnt offerings and sacrifice peace offerings of bulls. Moses took half the blood and put it in bowls. The other half he threw against the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it as the people listened. They said, everything God said we'll do. Yes, we'll obey. Moses took the rest of the blood and threw it out over the people, saying, this is the blood of the covenant which God has made with you out of all these words I have spoken. Then he climbed the mountain, Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and saw the God of Israel. He was standing on a pavement of something like sapphires, pure, clear sky blue. He didn't hurt these pillar leaders of the Israelites. They saw God, and they ate and drank. God said to Moses, climb higher up the mountain and wait there for me. I'll give you tablets of stone, the teachings and commandment that I've written to instruct them. So Moses got up, accompanied by Joshua his aide, and Moses climbed up the mountain of God. He told the elders of Israel, wait for us here until we return. You have Aaron and Hur with you. If there are any problems, go to them. Then Moses climbed the mountain. The cloud covered the mountain. The glory of God settled over Mount Sinai. The cloud covered it for 6 days. On the 7th day, he called out of the cloud to Moses. In the view of the Israelites below, the glory of God looked like a raging fire at the top of the mountain. Moses entered the middle of the cloud and climbed the mountain. Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. The book of Exodus chapter 25. Instructions on the mountain, the offerings. God spoke to Moses, tell the Israelites that they are to set aside offerings for me. Receive the offerings from everyone who is willing to give. These are the offerings I want you to receive from them: gold, silver, bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet material, fine linen, goat's hair, tan ram skins, dolphin skins, acacia wood, lamp oil, spices for anointing oils and for fragrant incense, onyx stones, and other stones for setting in the ephod and the breastplate. Let them construct a sanctuary for me so that I can live among them. You are to construct it following the plans I've given you, the design for the dwelling and the design for all its furnishings. The chest. First, let them make a chest using acacia wood. Make it 3 3/4 feet long and 2 1/4 feet wide and deep. Cover it with a veneer of pure gold inside and out, making a mold of gold all around it. Cast 4 gold rings and attach them to its 4 feet, 2 rings on one side, 2 rings on the other. Make poles from acacia wood and cover them with a veneer of gold and insert them into the rings on the sides of the chest for carrying the chest. The poles are to stay in the rings. They must not be removed. Place the testimony that I give you in the chest. Now make a lid of pure gold for the chest and atonement cover, 3 3/4 feet long, 2 1/4 feet wide. Sculpt 2 winged angels out of hammered gold for either end of the atonement cover. 1 angel at one end, 1 angel at the other. Make them of one piece with the atonement cover. Make the angels with their wings spread, hovering over the atonement cover, facing one another, but looking down on it. Set the atonement cover as a lid over the chest and place in the chest of testimony that I will give you. I will meet you there at times and speak with you from above the atonement cover and from between the angel figures that are on it, speaking the commands that I have for the Israelites. The table. Next, make a table from acacia wood. Make it 3 feet long and 1 1/2 feet wide and 2 1/4 feet high. Cover it with a veneer of pure gold. Make a molding all around it of gold. Make the border a handbreadth wide all around it and a rim of gold for the border. Make 4 rings of gold and attach the rings to the 4 legs parallel to the tabletop. They will serve as holders for the poles used to carry the table. Make the poles of acacia wood and cover them with a veneer of gold. They will be used to carry the table. Make plates, bowls, jars, and jugs for pouring out offerings. Make them of pure gold. Always keep fresh bread of the presence on the table before me. The lampstand. Make a lampstand of pure hammered gold. Make its stem and branches, cups, calyxes, and petals all of one piece. Give it 6 branches, 3 from one side and 3 from the other. Put 3 cups shaped like almond blossoms, each with calyx and petals on one branch, 3 on the next, and so on. The same for all 6 branches. On the main stem of the lampstand, make 4 cups shaped like almonds with calyx and petals, a calyx extended from under each pair of the 6 branches. The entire lampstand fashioned from one piece of hammered pure gold. Make 7 of these lamps for the table. Arrange the lamps so that they throw their light out in front. Make the candle snuffers and trays out of pure gold. Use a 75-pound brick of pure gold to make a lampstand and its accessories. Study the design you were given on the mountain and make everything accordingly. Exodus chapter 26, the dwelling. Make the dwelling itself from 10 panels of tapestry woven from fine twisted linen, blue and purple and scarlet material with an angel cherubim design. A skilled craftsman should do it. The panels of tapestry are each to be 46 feet long and 6 feet wide. Join 5 of the panels together and then the other 5 together. Make loops of blue along the edge of the outside panel of the first set and the same on the outside panel of the second set. Make 50 loops on each panel. Then make 50 gold clasps and join the tapestries together so that the dwelling is one whole. Next, make tapestries of goat hair for a tent that will cover the dwelling. Make 11 panels of these tapestries. The length of each panel will be 45 feet long and 60 feet wide. Join 5 of the panels together and then the other 6. Fold the 6th panel double at the front of the tent. Now make 50 loops along the edge of the end panel and 50 loops along the edge of the joining panel. Make 50 clasps of bronze and connect the clasps with the loops, bringing the tent together. Hang half of the overlap of the tapestry panels over the rear of the dwelling. The 18 inches of overlap on either side will cover the sides of the tent. Finally, make a covering for the tapestries of tanned ram skins dyed red, and over that a covering of dolphin skins. Frame the dwelling with planks of acacia wood, each section of frame 15 feet long and 2 1/4 feet wide, with 2 pegs for securing them. Make all the frames identical, 20 frames for the south side with 40 silver sockets to receive the 2 pegs from each of the 20 frames. The same construction on the north side of the dwelling. For the rear of the dwelling, which faces west, make 6 frames with 2 additional frames for the rear corners. Both of the 2 corner frames need to be double in thickness from top to bottom and fit into a single ring. 8 frames together with 16 sockets of silver, 2 under each frame. Now make crossbars of acacia wood, 5 for the frames on one side of the dwelling, 5 for the other side, and 5 for the back facing west. The center crossbar runs from end to end halfway up the frames. Cover the frames with a veneer of gold and make gold rings to hold the crossbars, and cover the crossbars with a veneer of gold. Then put the dwelling together, following the design you were shown on the mountain. Make a curtain of blue, purple, and scarlet materials and fine twisted linen. Have a design of angel cherubim woven into it by a skilled craftsman. Fasten it with gold hooks to 4 posts of acacia wood covered with a veneer of gold, set on 4 silver bases. After hanging the curtain from the clasp, bring the chest of the testimony in behind the curtain. The curtain will separate the holy place from the Holy of Holies. Now place the atonement cover lid on the chest of the testimony in the Holy of Holies. Place the table and the lampstand outside the curtain, and the lampstand on the south side of the dwelling, and the table opposite it on the north side. Make a screen for the door of the tent. Weave it from blue, purple, and scarlet material in fine twisted linen. Frame the weaving with 5 poles of acacia wood covered with a veneer of gold, and make gold hooks to hang the weaving, casting 5 bronze bases for the poles. The book of Exodus, chapter 27. The altar. Make an altar of acacia wood, make it 7.5 feet square and 4.5 feet high. Make horns at each of the 4 corners. The horns are to be of one piece with the altar and covered with a veneer of bronze. Make buckets for removing the ashes, along with the shovels, basins, forks, and fire pans. Make all these utensils from bronze. Make a grate of bronze mesh and attach bronze rings at each of the 4 corners. Put the grate under the ledge of the altar at the halfway point of the altar. Make acacia wood poles for the altar and cover them with a veneer of bronze. Insert the poles through the rings on the 2 sides of the altar for carrying. Use boards to make the altar, keeping the interior hollow. The courtyard. Make a courtyard for the dwelling. The south side is to be 150 feet long. The hangings for the courtyard are to be woven from fine twisted linen with their 20 posts, 20 bronze bases, and fastening hooks and bands of silver. The north side is to be exactly the same. For the west end of the courtyard, you will need 75 feet of hangings with their 10 posts and bases. Across the 75 feet at the front or east end, you will need 22.5 feet of hangings with their 3 posts and bases on one side, and the same for the other side. At the door of the courtyard, make a screen 30 feet long, woven from blue, purple, and scarlet stuff with fine twisted linen, embroidered by a craftsman and hung on its 4 posts and bases. All the posts around the courtyard are to be banded with silver, with hooks of silver and bases of bronze. The courtyard is to be 150 feet long and 75 feet wide. The hangings of fine twisted linen set on their bronze bases are to be 7.5 feet high. All the tools used for setting up the holy dwelling, including all the pegs in it, and the courtyard are to be made of bronze. Now order the Israelites to bring you pure, clean olive oil for light, so that the lamps can be kept burning in the tent of the meeting, the area outside of the curtain that veils the testimony. Aaron and his sons will keep this light burning from evening until morning before God. This is to be a permanent practice down through the generations for the Israelites. Exodus chapter 28, the vestments. Get your brother Aaron and his sons from among the Israelites to serve me as priests. Aaron and his sons, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, Ithamar. Make sacred vestments for your brother Aaron to symbolize glory and beauty. Consult with the skilled craftsmen, those whom I've gifted in this work, and arrange for them to make Aaron's vestments, to set them apart as holy, to act as priests for me. These are the articles of clothing they are to make: breastpiece, ephod, robe, woven tunic, turban, sash. They are making holy vestments for your brother Aaron and his sons as they work as priests for me. They will need gold, blue, purple, and scarlet material and fine linen. The ephod. Have the ephod made from gold, blue, purple, and scarlet material and fine twisted linen by a skilled craftsman. Give it 2 shoulder pieces at 2 of the corners so that it can be fastened. The decorated band on it is to be just like it and of one piece with it, made of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet material, and a fine twisted linen. Next, take 2 onyx stones and engrave the names of the sons of Israel on them in the order of their birth. 6 names on one stone and the remaining 6 on the other. Engrave the names of the sons of Israel on the 2 stones the way a jeweler engraves a seal. Then mount the stones in settings of filtered gold. Fasten the 2 stones on the shoulder pieces of the ephod. They are memorial stones for the Israelites. Aaron will wear these names on his shoulders as a memorial before God. Make the settings of gold filigree. Make 2 chains of pure gold and braid them like cords, and then attach the corded chains to the settings. The breastpiece. Now make a breastpiece of judgment using skilled craftsmen, the same as with the ephod. Use gold, blue, purple, and scarlet material and fine twisted linen. Make it 9 inches square and fold it double. Mount 4 rows of precious gemstones on it. First row, carnelian, topaz, emerald. Second row, ruby, sapphire, crystal. Third row, jacinth, agate, amethyst. Fourth row, beryl, onyx, jasper. Set them in gold filigree. The 12 stones correspond to the names of the Israelites, with 12 names engraved, one on each, and as on the seal of the 12 tribes. Then make braided chains of pure gold for the breastpiece like cords. Make 2 rings of gold for the breastpiece and fasten them to the 2 ends. Fasten the 2 golden cords to the rings at the ends of the breastpiece. Then fasten the other ends of the 2 cords to the 2 settings of filigree, attaching them to the shoulder pieces of the ephod in front. Then make 2 rings of gold and fasten them to the 2 ends of the breastpiece on its inside edge facing the ephod. Then make 2 more rings of gold and fasten them in front of the ephod to the lower part of the 2 shoulder pieces near the seam above the decorated band. Fasten the breastpiece in place by running a cord of blue through its rings to the rings of the ephod so that it rests secure on the decorated band of the ephod and won't come loose. Aaron will regularly carry the names of the sons of Israel on the breastpiece of judgment over his heart as he enters the sanctuary into the presence of God for remembrance. Place the Urim and Thummim in the breastpiece of judgment. They will be over Aaron's heart when he enters the presence of God. In this way, Aaron will regularly carry the breastpiece of judgment into the presence of God. The robe. Make the robe for the ephod entirely of blue, with an opening for the head at the center and a hem on the edge so that it won't tear. For the edge of the skirts, make pomegranates of blue, purple, scarlet material all around, and alternate them with bells of gold, gold bell and pomegranate, all around the hem of the robe. Aaron has to wear it when he does his priestly work. The bells will be heard when he enters the holy place and comes into the presence of God, and again when he comes out, so that he won't die. The turban, tunic, and underwear. Make a plate of pure gold, engrave on it a seal holy to God. Tie it with a blue cord to the front of the turban. It is to rest there on Aaron's forehead. He'll take on any guilt involved in the sacred offerings that the Israelites dedicate, no matter what they bring. It will always be on Aaron's forehead so that the offerings will be acceptable before God. Weave the tunic of fine linen. Make the turban of fine linen. The sash will be the work of an embroider. Make tunics, sashes, and hats for Aaron's sons to express glory and beauty. Dress your brother Aaron and his sons in them. Anoint, ordain, and dedicate them to serve me as priests. Make linen underwear to cover their nakedness from waist to thigh. Aaron and his sons must wear it whenever they enter the tent of meeting or approach the altar to minister in the holy place, so that they won't incur guilt and die. This is a permanent rule for Aaron and all his priest descendants. Exodus chapter 29, consecration of priests. This is the ceremony for dedicating them as priests. Take a young bull and 2 rams, healthy and without defects, using fine wheat flour but no yeast. Make bread and cakes mixed with oil and wafers spread with oil. Place them in a basket and carry them along with the bull and the 2 rams. Bring Aaron and his sons to the entrance of the tent of meeting and wash them with water. Then take the vestments and dress Aaron in the tunic, the robe of the ephod and the breastpiece, belting the ephod on him with embroidered waistband. Set the turban on his head and place the sacred crown on the turban. Then take the anointing oil and pour it on his head, anointing him. Then bring his sons, put tunics on them, and gird them with sashes, both Aaron and his sons, and set hats on them. Their priesthood is upheld by law and is permanent. This is how you will ordain Aaron and his sons. Bring the bull to the tent of meeting. Aaron and his sons will place their hands on the head of the bull. Then you will slaughter the bull in the presence of God at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Take some of the bull's blood and smear it on the horns of the altar with your finger. Pour the rest of the blood on the base of the altar. Next, take all the fat that covers the innards, fat from around the liver and the 2 kidneys, and burn it on the altar. But the flesh of the bull, including its hide and dung, you will burn up outside the camp. It is an absolution offering. Then take one of the rams, have Aaron and his sons place their hands on the head of the ram. Slaughter the ram and take its blood and throw it against the altar all around. Cut the ram into pieces, wash its innards and legs, then gather the pieces and its head, and burn the whole ram on the altar. It is a whole burnt offering to God, a pleasant fragrance and offering by fire to God. Then take the second ram, have Aaron and his sons place their hands on the ram's head. Slaughter the ram, take some of its blood and rub it on Aaron's right earlobe and on the right earlobes of his sons, on the thumbs of their right hands and on the big toes of their right feet. Sprinkle the rest of the blood against all the sides of the altar. Then take some of the blood that is on the altar, mix it with some of the anointing oil, and splash it on Aaron and his clothes and on his sons and on their clothes, so that Aaron and his clothes and his sons and his clothes will be made holy. Take the fat from the ram, the fat tail, the fat that covers the innards, the long lobe of the liver, the 2 kidneys, and the fat on them and on the right thigh. This is the ordination ram. Also take 1 loaf of bread, an oil cake, a wafer from the bread basket that is in the presence of God. Place all these in the open hands of Aaron and his sons, who will wave them before God, a wave offering. Then take them from their hands and burn them on the altar with the whole burnt offering, a pleasing fragrance before God, a gift to God. Now take the breast from Aaron's ordination ram and wave it before God, a wave offering. That will be your portion. Bless the wave offering breast and the thigh that was held up. These are the parts of the ordination ram that are for Aaron and his sons. Aaron and his sons are always to get this offering from the Israelites. The Israelites are to make this offering regularly from their peace offerings. Aaron's sacred garments are to be handed down to his descendants so that it can be anointed and ordained in them. The son who succeeds him as priest is to wear them for 7 days and enter the tent of meeting to minister in the holy place. Take the ordination ram and boil the meat in the holy place. At the entrance of the tent of meeting, Aaron and his sons will eat the boiled meat and bread that is in the basket. Atoned by these offerings, ordained and hallowed by them, they are the only ones who are to eat them. No outsiders are to eat them. They're holy. Anything from the ordination ram or from the bread that is left over until morning, you are to burn up. Don't eat it. It's holy. Do everything for the ordination of Aaron and his sons exactly as I've commanded you throughout the 7 days. Offer a bull as an absolution offering for atonement each day. Offer it on the altar when you make atonement for it. Anoint and hallow it. Make atonement for the altar and hallow it for 7 days. The altar will become soaked in holiness. Anyone who so much as touches the altar will become holy. This is what you are to offer on the altar: 2-year-old lambs each and every day, 1 lamb in the morning and the second lamb at evening. With the sacrifice of the first lamb, offer 2 quarts of fine flour with a quart of virgin olive oil plus a quart of wine for a drink offering. The sacrifice of the second lamb, the one at evening, is also to be accompanied by the same grain offering and drink offering of the morning sacrifice to give a pleasing fragrance, a gift to God. This is to be your regular daily whole burnt offering before God, generation after generation, sacrifice at the entrance of the tent of meeting. That's where I'll meet you. That's where I'll speak with you. That's where I'll meet the Israelites, at the place made holy by my glory. I'll make the tent of meeting and the altar holy. I'll make Aaron and his sons holy in order to serve me as priests. I'll move in and live with the Israelites. I'll be their God. They'll realize that I'm their God who brought them out of the land of Egypt so that I could live with them. I am God, your God. This is the word of the Lord.